So in accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and will be broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel, and that this meeting of the Lunenburg Park Commission is also being conducted remotely. Accordingly, for those that are participating via video, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. The town of Lunenburg, in response to the COVID-19, is currently following the guidance from the Lunenburg Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, all public meetings are being conducted remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town website on the COVID-19 information page, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of this meeting. And as always, this meeting will have public comment. And guess what, folks? This is the last time I have to read this. It is my understanding that the governor is requiring groups to mainly be back in person the middle of June. So I anticipate our next meeting to actually be in person. Here's Dave. All right, so let me do a quick roll call of who's here. Susanna Jewell.
Here.
Chris Sullivan.
Here.
Anna Lockwood.
Here.
And Dave Passios.
Yeah, I made it in at the last second. What's with the ID requirement?
Oh, you had to put one in?
Yeah.
Huh.
The link didn't carry over the whole,
I copy and pasted the link.
yeah, just when you clicked on it, it opened up a Zoom meeting, but it didn't capture the meeting number.
Oh, that's weird. Okay.
No big deal. Just took me a few extra seconds.
Gotcha. All right.
You know me, I don't like extra steps.
I gotcha. All right, so to start off with, do we have any public or board comments?
No.
Perfect. Susanna sent over a minutes from February 12th. Did anybody get a chance to look at them?
I perused through them at the end of my TCP meeting, so yes, I have seen them.
I have looked at them as well.
I did.
Okay, so I can copy and paste those onto the town letterhead without a problem. Does anybody have any comments or changes that they would like to make to those?
I didn't notice anything.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to rescind the original approval of these minutes back in March, and in the same motion, a motion to approve the minutes of February 12th.
So
Yeah, second.
seeing as the temporary chair screwed that up.
It's okay. Okay, so we have to do a quick roll call on that. Chris?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Susanna?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
And an aye for myself. Thank you for doing this, Susanna.
Yeah.
I do not have the last minutes ready. They'll eventually get done.
Did you start them?
Sort of.
I think it's my turn.
It's okay. It might be your turn, but I think I started them. I'll look.
If you didn't, I'll take them. If not, I'll take this one.
I think that this might be one of the last times we have to do minutes, because I believe at town meeting, we voted to approve the hiring of somebody, and I did request that Park Commission minutes be added to that person's.
Oh, great.
Okay,
Great.
awesome.
That wouldn't be effective till July though.
July
Karen.
1. Yep.
So
Yeah.
if we start meeting in person, are we going to then be recorded in person?
I don't know.
Okay.
That said, I believe this will go back to the original sort of rules, which was as long as there was a quorum present, there can be call-in or possibly even Zoom if one of our devices is hooked up, participation from other members. So yeah, so I'll get more details on that, or somebody can get more details on that.
Okay.
All right, let me do the quick update. Kayla is officially on maternity leave. She had a baby earlier this week, so she is going to try to be out limited weeks. It sounds like her husband might be taking a paternity leave, so she wanted to try to jump back in for the summer season. I don't expect her to be back all of her hours, just some of them, probably by the end of June. So in the meantime, Sam over at the DPW office is taking her place. And I'm watching out for the general parks emails that are coming through and replying to those. So she doesn't really have an update, although she did say that the town beach passes are now available online, as are swim lessons. Okay, so now an update from Rob. His daughter graduated this evening, so he's not with us. His updates: the highway department used asphalt millings from Whalum Road to smooth and level the parking lot at McNally. The millings were spread and then rolled to provide a nice compact surface. He said it looks great. I will second that. I was down there yesterday. It looks fantastic. The Lakeview Landscaping will be grooming the beach and bringing in a load of sand prior to the June 20 opening date. The DPW is continuing to mow and trim at the fields and parks until the contract with the new landscaping company kicks in on July 1. Water service has been turned on all the parks. This last update, I think I'm going to ask if you guys would be okay with moving number 12 on our agenda out of order up to the top. A group that fundraises for McNally Park had aluminum bleachers delivered to the field. He did attach a picture. His guys will be taking the old wood steel bleachers down and moving the new ones into that spot. The new bleachers are quite nice. I was shopping around for new ones and was not aware that this was being delivered, so was very surprised when it got delivered. So we were unaware of this donation, and he was unaware of it. I did speak to someone from the McNally family, and they are in fact the ones that fundraised for it. They do a whole slew of things down at McNally, and I've asked Kayla when she gets back from maternity leave to reach out to them and try to work together so we're not duplicating efforts, because this easily could have been a duplicated effort. And I don't know if bleachers are returnable once we get them. So Rob obviously didn't order them, but number 12 is a recommendation of acceptance of the gift of bleachers for McNally Field. So the way this works is that we as a park commission make the recommendation to accept the gift, and then has to go to the Board of Selectmen or the Select Board for the final approval of that gift. Does anybody have any questions, concerns on the bleachers? Does anybody want to make a
I'd
motion accepting
make
that?
a recommendation to accept that donation.
Okay,
Second,
quick roll call. Chris?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Dave?
aye.
Susanna?
Hi.
Great. All right, that's done. Now, what I was hoping was going to be my favorite part of the night, and I have a feeling I'm going to be sorely disappointed, and I guess I'll have to suck it up. The reconfiguration of our park commission. So every year we do this when we bring on new members. So we would be looking, currently we have a chair, a vice chair, a secretary, and then 2 members. It's my understanding we can pretty much set it up how we want. Does anybody have any interest in any of those positions? Well, people.
At the very most, for the next year, I'd be willing to stay where I'm at, but, you know, recent events are going to facilitate the necessity of change going forward beyond this year.
So I
Leave it
would,
at that.
yep. So I would actually like to see, all right, so here, this is complete transparency. I am swamped in my personal life right now. We've got a whole lot going on, and I just don't feel like I'm doing you guys justice. I've also been in the seat I've been on the Parks Commission for 5 years, and I think I've held this seat for 3 years maybe. So I'm fine staying on, but I guess I'm saying to you, if I do stay on, that I'm gonna need some help in making sure that everything gets done. Also, since I'm in the know of what's going on with Mr. Passios, if somebody else is interested in taking the vice chair,
Most
I would
definitely go
absolutely
for it.
support of somebody else taking that position.
I'd be willing to kind of come under your wing and maybe learn a little more. I
Sure.
think that's my concern, Karen. Like I'm
Yeah.
just so new and trying to
I know, and
Kinda
I'm asking
find my way.
that a lot anyway, so, you know,
Um,
you guys are all brand
but
new.
I'd be willing to obviously help in that capacity and learn, and then kind of evaluate next year, kind of do.
Okay, I'm good with that. So I'll make the motion to
Excuse me.
put Chris Sullivan in the role of vice chair.
Second,
Great, second.
Great. So
No
quick-
rush, Dave. It's a little quick.
I'll make that my roll call since it feels weird asking Chris to vote on himself first. Anna,
Aye.
Dave,
I'm,
Susanna,
Aye.
and I for myself and Chris. You good with it?
Can I abstain? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah,
No.
aye.
Yeah,
That's
you
So
fine.
can.
I do think-
No, aye, that's fine.
I think if we're gonna leave me in the position of chair, it needs to be motioned and voted on since it's a new year.
I'll make a motion to elect Karen as the chair of the board.
Mhm.
Second.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so quick roll call. Chris?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Dave?
I'm,
Susanna?
Aye.
I suppose an I for myself.
I know this is technically after the vote, but you didn't ask if there was any comments on the motion, Miss Chairwoman. But
I probably would have been the only one to make the comments that I didn't want it, but
well, I want to, if I could make a quick comment, I just want to thank you, Karen, for the awesome work you have done this past 3 years. The Parks Commission, you know, we always have had one, but since I moved to Lunenburg, which has been now almost 15 years, you know, it has been the most active, has made the most difference this past 3 to 4 years since you joined the board. So I know it's a lot of work. It's appreciated, and I do believe it's appreciated beyond just me. I think the town and the residents
you.
appreciate the hard work with
So,
everything. I could I could give you a list of accomplishments if you'd like.
I know,
But
no,
thank
don't
you.
need to do that, but yeah, so I mean, you guys all know what we do, so you know, I'm just every new little human that walks into our life brings us adjustment, and we're in that adjustment again. And I'm just, you know, I wanted to be transparent that there's a lot of work, so I may be falling back on people looking for extra help. So Susanna's been the secretary. Is that a role that you want, Anna, or Susanna? Do you want to keep that?
I feel like I'm doing a crappy job at it, frankly, but I'm happy to keep it if nobody else wants it. I'm just swamped as well, and a different brand of swamped for sure. But I wish that I could be helping more and be doing a better job as secretary. But I'm happy to. I'm trying to step it up.
My thought is that after the, you know, once we get the ball rolling on this new position, that it will hopefully be easier. But I'm also happy to leave you in that position and sort of look at the other commissioners and ask if, you know, periodically if somebody, you know, could run some minutes for us, you know, that would be helpful as well.
I have a seasonal whatever bad time right now, so that's all that's going on. But I'm happy to still be the secretary if nobody else wants to do it.
Anna, did you want it?
I did not want it, but I will offer to, you know, I think the minutes right now is that's the biggest task that you have.
That's it. Yes, that is
Okay.
the task. Yeah, and I only
And has we got confirmation that the person to be hired will take care of all the minutes, or no, for all commissions?
I got confirmation from Heather Lemieux back in May that, are we still in May? I guess earlier
Yep.
this month, or back in April, I guess, because I would have asked before town meeting that she was going to put us on the list. And I will obviously follow up on that, you know,
Okay.
whether or not, I don't know. I sometimes feel like doing minutes is a job in itself, maybe because I'm not good at doing them. Maybe because you know, I sit through the minutes and I'm, you know, trying to make sure they're reflected in the way that I know that they were meant. So maybe somebody else who's just gonna,
Massachusetts radar.
Dave, what are you doing?
Sorry, I thought I had my mic shut off.
I'm like, who's he calling in? So yeah, I mean, not absolute confirmation that they are in fact going to do all of our minutes, but confirmation we were put on the list.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to be honest. I have never done minutes in English. But I'll be happy to be a backup until we have someone, and Susanna, we can take turns
Okay.
So that way it's one last thing for Karen
It'd be great.
and
let's-
yeah.
Let's take that off of Karen's lap for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I get a motion to put Susanna Jewell in the position of secretary?
Motion to put Susanna Jewell in position of secretary.
I'll second that. Quick roll call, Chris?
Aye.
Anna?
I
Dave?
I,
Susanna?
Aye.
Excellent. All right, next thing on our list is Marshall Park parking issues. This was something that came up with Dave Passios, or was brought to Dave's attention, so he asked for it to be on the agenda.
yeah, I still haven't been able to determine what event was going on. And let's see, it would have been Friday the 14th. But I got a phone call at a very unopportune moment for me, actually, so I wasn't able to really deal with it. I tried to pass it off, and no information was passed to anybody else in DPW. But anyway, I was told that a resident well-known to me had just driven through the area on Chestnut Street past Marshall Park, and cars were lining both sides of the street. They were double parked. And honestly, I still don't know what event was going on. According to Kayla, there was nothing on the schedule for that time period. So I don't know if it was an impromptu school thing that, you know, a bunch of the kids decided to do something at Marshall Park and they just parked everywhere. I can't speak to what organization caused the issue, but I did check with a couple of other residents on Chestnut Street, and they said, yeah, Friday evening was worse than we've seen it in a very long time. Since then, I've been monitoring whenever I can the parking with actual games going on with the Phillies. The Lunenburg high school team was there late this afternoon, and the Phillies have been on the field a couple of times. Today I counted roughly 60 cars. Obviously there's no place to park off of Chestnut Street, but they were all parked on the appropriate side. None double parked, but the line stretched from the crest of the hill as you come from Route 2A, where that actually is a blind spot if you're coming from 2A. So if they're just short of that corner, you come around the corner and all of a sudden you're stuck into a one lane road if they're parked there. So the line went from there and extended almost to Highland Street. So that's 65 to 70 cars. So those are the numbers we got to be thinking about and more when we start looking at the parking requirements off street as we renovate Marshall Park. One of the things I thought of just recently too is that no matter what you do with the area of the 90-foot diamond, and I think actually if you reconfigure it to rectangular fields and they start to get used on a regular basis, I think you're going to have even more cars generated by the activities on those fields. So again, when we get to the planning of Marshall itself, we got to really be sensitive to squeaking out every single parking space we can without turning the whole park into a parking lot.
I think the traffic flow could be better there. I think the ease of being able to park over at the main lot on Mass Ave and easily walking over to the Chestnut Street field needs to be improved. You know, I do think that when we look at the bringing in a consultant, and that's something that they'll have to take a look at. So I agree with you there. I'm pretty positive. I just tried to pull it up and I can't. I believe, what time did you get the call, Dave?
Around 5 p.m.
I think it was the end of a high school baseball game, because I had looked at the calendar that I can't get up right now because it's giving me an error. But I'm pretty positive that was a high school game, so it may not have been our parents doing it. It could have been the away team who hadn't maybe been over to that area before. I think what we can do, because we do tend to run into this every few seasons. I've been on vacation clear across the country, and I've gotten emails with pictures that people have, been parking literally in somebody else's yard. So I think it's, it's something that we should make our police chief aware of and see if maybe they can do a little bit more patrolling down there to see if there's any illegal parking going on. And then we can certainly make sure that it's considered as we move into the planning of Marshall Park.
Karen, one of the things you alluded to was the parking on the 2A side. That's all well and good as long as there's not a Little League game and a softball game going on at the same time. And I've seen that a couple of times already this season. And the parking requirements for those two teams or those two games over on that side pretty much fill that area up the way it's laid out now.
Yeah.
So, you know, we have a problem. We know it. We're going to have to figure out a way to solve it.
Yep. So that time frame, if I'm correct in my assumption of when the games were, that would have been a game that would have happened right after school, and our Little League programs aren't using the field. Softball could have been because the high school's still using the field over there for softball. But there's areas over there that I think are just that don't get parked in, that can at some point be turned into a parking area, like this old skate park area. You know, we do have some additional space over there. So
oh yeah, most definitely. And like you said, improving the access from the 2A side to the Chestnut Street side for pedestrian traffic off of the field is something that's really important. It was brought up by a resident in town. I think everybody probably saw that email.
If people, if anybody gets an email or gets contacted directly, even if it's after the fact, just ask them to send an email over to that parks at lunenburgonline.com account, just so Kayla can track anybody that's complaining about parking over there. I think it would just be helpful moving forward. It's sometimes you get people say, oh, nobody's ever complained about it, and that's not the reality. So
best I can tell from the schedule, it was a JV baseball game. It was at 3:30 on that Friday. It was Friday the 14th. It's a JV baseball game.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, that time frame works because the resident I spoke to said that it broke up like 5:36 by 5:36 o'clock. So that timing is about right.
I've seen the double parking, but when I've seen it, because Chestnut's right around the corner from here, obviously, the double parking I've seen is like right at the field. So they take advantage of that wider space that kind of juts in towards the field a little bit, and I'll see cars kind of stacked in there a little bit.
Yeah. Like I say, I think the biggest problem was this particular time they were parked all the way up the street on the side that's already posted for no parking. As well,
it is dangerous. Yeah, it is a dangerous road when there are cars even parked on one side of the street. It's a dangerous kind of situation right now.
Okay.
So it's been discussed for decades, but you know, we're going to do our best to try to find a solution.
Okay. All right, so we'll make sure that gets addressed, and I'm sure you won't let us forget. I don't know if you guys are getting it, but I'm getting a thunderstorm over here. So
yeah, it's starting to come.
Yeah, the line's just coming into the area now. It's pretty narrow, but pretty active.
Okay. Is that what you were just pulling up, Dave? Is the radar?
Yes. Yeah, I've got the live radar sitting on my phone right now.
Gotcha.
I have a family member down on the air rail trail right now running 6 miles.
We'll go pick her up.
She's got her own car. She hasn't called me yet. I told her, call me if you get trapped.
All right. The next one, the next agenda item is Marshall Pond. That was asked to be put on by Anna.
Yep, I'm not on mute. So, you know, I'll try to make this short. The overall health of the pond has seen, you know, a big decline over the, you know, unfortunately, since I moved in to Lunenburg 15 years. My neighbor, she lives on the little cottage next to the pound next door to the lake, to the pond. Pond and pound. I have to think before I say it. But and she has she has pictures of the pond for every year that she lived there, and before that, her parents lived there, and she also has pictures of them. And so, you know, if I think it's overall, it's well known that over usage of fertilizers have, you know, tend to run off and land in the waterways, and if the pond doesn't have a lot of water movement, and that does, that's probably one of the factors that's impacting the health of the pond. But with there's right now there's a lot of water lilies. They're growing, and by this year they are growing faster. Usually it's by mid-June when the pond's completely covered. I think because we had, you know, kind of a warmer spring and not as much snow, they seem to be coming up faster. That's what I'm hoping. But over the years, I think because of the water lilies coming up, the perimeter of the pond has grown. And especially since I moved here, to the point where the old light posts that probably were not on water, right now there are on the water. And there are two in particular that they're looking like they can fall on the pond at any moment now. I talked with Rob, what would be the process, you know, because the town owns those light posts. They're disconnected to what would be the process to remove those posts, because they're wood and they're probably treated wood. If they fell in a pond, it would be more difficult to remediate anything that we need to do with them. They're probably treated. There's a lot of life on the pond still. Like if you go there in the morning, you see turtles, you know, lined up in the sun. It's quite beautiful. But anyway, so Rob said that he thinks that the first thing we need to do is to see if the Parks Commission would like to see those posts removed, or finding a solution for them, or leaving them there, which I agree. So that is what one of the questions that's upon us is, do we want to keep the light post there? Do we want to see if with DPW if they can remove it, or how can that be remediated so these posts don't fall in the water? And the overall conversation that I think we should have is, as we look into improving Marshall Park, the pond is a big part of that, of the park. You know, can we do something to help bring some of the status of the water, more water back into the pond, if there's something we can do as part of the study? So those are the two things that I had.
Okay, so Anna, and the rest of the commissioners, feel free to chime in with any questions. Those light posts, they are working, so they are connected to power?
No, they're not.
They're not, so they're, at this point, they're just the posts?
They're just the posts with the wires hanging, and the lights. I don't know if the glass of the lights are at least there. I think everything was simply disconnected and left there.
Okay, and then the posts that are there, if I remember correctly, you had mentioned that they're treated. They are like a pressure treated type wood pole. Were they old?
They're old enough. They're old enough so they'd be creosote soaked. They've been there longer than I've been alive.
I personally, I don't think we need anything in the water that's not naturally supposed to be there.
Right.
So I personally don't have an issue with that being removed. I do think that we need to come up with some water management or beach management. I don't know what you want to call it for all of our properties. So I wouldn't have an issue trying to see, you know, what that entails for Marshall Pond, as well as, you know, the issues we have with weeds over at the town beach.
Right.
One of the things that I've, you know, I totally agree with this conversation. One of the things I've thought about, and I hope to have a couple of conversations with people that would know the answers to my questions, and that is that the water from Marshall Pond, as it travels under Highland Street, travels down behind the properties to Northfield Road, under Northfield Road, and ultimately drops into the Mulpus Brook and then Hickory Hills. So anything carried downstream from that pond is affecting what everybody's been calling the cold water fisheries of Mulpus Brook, and ultimately feeding into Hickory Hills, potentially feeding into Hickory Hills problems. So I think there would be some support to start looking at water management for Marshall Pond. I agree, it was a much better pond 40, 45 years ago. There was actually a proposal at one time that didn't get any traction. But many years ago, there was discussion when you could do these things of draining Marshall Pond, dredging it, and creating a second town beach. It's really too bad that didn't happen back then, because I think it'd take an act of Congress to be able to do it now. One improvement, just to make note of, is that now that the center of town is, I believe, 100% covered by municipal sewer, there were some issues with the impact of sewage disposal systems around that area and the center of town, and that's been eliminated.
So Anna, go ahead, Susanna.
I'd love to see the craze soaked poles removed, but I'd love to also see lighting brought back in that's not so broken and antiquated.
That's what I was going to say too. I'd love to see some lights there still, and I'd love to see some life back at Marshall Park or Marshall Pond. You know, certainly is the heat of summer. It is overgrown, and it's not as useful.
We kayaked there last summer. It was fun, but it is weedy.
Yeah,
I've
we
never
usually,
been in there.
Oh, it's
yeah,
nice.
yeah, we usually,
Yeah.
we have a little rowboat that in early spring, it's beautiful to just go towards the end of the pond, and there are a lot of ducks and different birds that are there. And every year we have a pair of the gray heron, blue herons. Yeah,
We saw them. Yeah.
you did. Yeah,
Yeah.
and last year we always thought we had one, and last year I was standing in my backyard and I saw one flying and I started videoing, and we saw one coming this way, and then like 2 seconds later the other one came this way. We're like, oh, we actually have two. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was nice. But early spring is always a great time to go there. And in the high school, not the high school, I believe they're middle school kids. We used to have a teacher that used to bring the kids down to probably explore around the pond, and we hadn't had that for a while. But this past a couple weeks ago, I saw a group of kids coming, and they were exploring around, and they came several times.
It was Nature's Classroom that they brought into the elementary school this year, since they couldn't go. My son's class, fifth grade class, couldn't go to Nature's Classroom, so they brought like Nature's Classroom on the road. So they had 2 days each at the school, and they'd walk around town and explore.
Oh, that's
Yeah, it was neat.
awesome. Yeah. Hey,
So are
ahead.
we thinking that we want to ask Rob to remove those posts and then explore putting new ones in as two separate pieces? Are we looking to just?
Well, I think because I added the item to the agenda, I think I was thinking of one being a motion to, ask the DPW to, see how can the situation with the post should be addressed. I don't want to give the way because he will be the expert on that.
Yep.
And the second piece, I don't know if we need a motion. I think as we do the study for Marshall Park, we can add that piece to the study. So I don't know if we need that to be a motion. We certainly can, but if the board, so what are everybody's thoughts? And the rain is here.
Yeah, it's here. I think that I would like to see a invasive non-native remediation plan for the entirety of Marshall Park, including the pond. And I feel like that would include a lot of the species that are doing damage to the pond.
So what was it called again, Susanna? An invasive non-native study?
Yeah, remediation study.
Okay.
Yeah. So how about I'll make the first motion, because I think I have the language for that, and Susanna makes the second motion about the invasive, everything that she did. Okay, so I'll make a motion to ask the DPW to look at ways to how to properly remove the light posts during Marshall Pond, in particular the two that are about to fall on the pond.
Second.
Give me 1 second. I'm trying to kill two birds with one stone, and I'm actually, as you were talking, Anna, I drafted the email to Rob. So I just want to make sure I'm putting this in right.
Okay.
So we're supporting having him investigate the removal of the light posts.
Right.
At Marshall Pond. Okay. All right. Is there any discussion on that? All right. Let me do a quick roll call. Chris?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Susanna?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
And it's an aye for myself, so I'll send that over to him. So here's my hesitation on Susanna's, and I'm wondering if it would be okay with everybody if we just gave Rob a heads up that that's what we're looking at. Is I only have Marshall Pond on the agenda. I don't have all of although is Marshall Pond really the only, that's the only water body we have there, correct?
Well, there is a little brook that feeds the pond, and I don't know if that brook, and
And
funny enough,
I believe that's off the park's property.
okay,
I believe, I don't know for sure, but there's a stone wall that crosses the pond, and I believe that's the boundary.
I have found, so just as a note, that the stone walls around this area do not represent property lines. And I have found that because I have a stone wall that's, I thought it was part of my property, but it's like, it starts in my property and then veers off not on my property. And I don't know if that's the case everywhere.
So
So my hesitancy on making a motion to get a invasive non-native remediation plan as part of the Marshall Park thing is it could slow things way down for a planning process.
okay.
I guess I would like to see what our options are for managing the non-natives, and that can be a conversation with the DPW director, I'm assuming, with a maintenance plan sort of avenue instead of bringing some sort of state
Okay.
entity in on it,
Okay.
because it's just like bittersweet along the basketball court. It's a lot of known plants that are managed probably on other properties in town.
Okay.
And the pond is probably fanwort, if it's Hickory Hills' problem, the same problems that Hickory Hills has, or is it lily pads or?
I believe the majority there is lily pads. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's, Susanna, what did you call it? I always get it wrong.
Fanwort?
Fanwort, yeah.
Yeah.
That pond is covered with it. The
Marshall
lily pads hide that
Oh.
from view, but that pond is inundated with it.
So that's devastating to the pond then.
Yeah, and I was just going to comment that I think we should seriously consider the study of the pond itself as part of the master plan for the entire park. I mean, I believe there would be funding available from other sources other than what we'd be using to actually do work in the park itself.
Okay.
Conservation, I'm sure, would have some ideas. Open space would have some ideas. So I think we should keep that on our list of possible items to be part of the master plan.
Okay.
Well, one thing, adding to what Dave is saying, that I think, Susanna, my address, I don't want to slow things down at all because the process itself is already very long. But the first phase, where is a study, it's not necessarily the implementation. It can happen. I think when the implementation comes as part of the master plan, we might be able to break that off and, like Dave said, see other types of funding for that one particular project. But I don't know. That's what I was thinking.
Anna, while we're still on Marshall Pond, any word or any luck on a picnic table or two?
No, I called a couple places, didn't hear back. I went for Walmart first.
Yeah.
So,
And then I was thinking, do I need to be worried, because we had the in our meeting we had the conversation about the town beach picnic table being expensive because it needed to be ADA compliant. If we put something outside and is a donation, does it need to be ADA compliant? Does it have to be a specific one?
I don't know, to be
I
honest.
think those were purchased just because of where they were going to put them. I don't think the
I mean,
location at Marshall.
I think having something that's ADA compliant, I would absolutely be in support of that. I mean,
Right.
if it came through as a donation, it's sort of one of those beggars can't be choosers situation.
And
you
the location where they would go wouldn't be ADA compliant.
Right.
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 Well, although that said, some of the ADA compliant ground, you'd be surprised at. So I sometimes feel like we're ADA compliant, but with the bare minimum of, like, I know that the Wallace Park, that the mulch that we put down, because of the way it was put down, it was actually considered compliant. You know, there's a lot of people that don't agree with that in the, you know, in the group of people that, you know, have disabilities, but you know, so it may be more compliant than we think over there. You know, I'm curious to know, Rob hit me up I don't know, a month ago, I don't even know at this point, a few weeks ago, that he was trying to get through the end of the finances for the fiscal year. And you know, was there anything off the top of my head? And I don't remember if I ran a few things by him, but he had mentioned the bleachers. You know, maybe it's one of those things where if he's not going to be getting bleachers, maybe it could just be done as picnic tables. I don't know if he'd cover that though, 'cause it's considered, you know, he was replacing bleachers. That's a maintenance issue, where this would just be putting it in brand new. But we could certainly ask him.
We could play the card of the lifeguard seats.
Yeah.
Karen knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We bought lifeguard seats for the beach where they did not exist with year-end money a number of years ago.
You know, I think that care and maintenance, I think it's a broad term. And I think that, you know, if you want to try to get something, anybody can, you know, figure out a way to make it fit into that. But let me talk to him and see if maybe that's something that he could consider.
Okay. So I'll leave you to take that action and let me know.
Yeah.
So are we gonna make a motion about, Susanna, do you want to make a motion about
The invasive-
requesting, yeah, the invasive plants to be part of the study, or you want to hold off to that?
What does everyone else think? That we should have a separate study for just the pond, on the invasives that are at the pond?
So I'm wondering if we should get a consultant on board and see what they think.
Okay.
I'm also wondering if just having a discussion with the chair of the my husband's
Conservation.
if you can see him. Yeah, have a conversation with the chair of conservation to see what he knows on the topic, because he's been really good at securing some grants for some conservation areas. I'm wondering if he knows of anything that would, you know, cover this sort of thing, and maybe it wouldn't have to be necessarily, because that's going to be an ongoing issue, right? Even if once they remediate that, it's still going to have to be constantly kept up and treated. And so, you know, I'm wondering if it can be just done as a separate piece, sort of like the mowing of the lawn at Marshall, you know, that's just a separate contract. I'm just wondering if we can do something that way. So I wonder if we should wait and have some conversations with conservation, and then the consultant that we bring on board. I don't know how that works, but that would be my thought.
Yeah, I guess I'm disinclined to make a motion. if there's not much to say, except, yes, let's keep thinking about what's there and exploring and talking to the people that know what's going on in our local ponds.
Can you
Alright.
make sure you stay on top of me about that, Susanna? It's just, I feel like a lot of times I forget, like, between meetings, what we've talked about, and then I'm like, oh yeah, we should have put this back on. So feel free to remind me.
We're at Marshall a lot, so I'll just write down the invasives that I see when I'm there, and anyone that knows what they're looking at in the water when they're at the pond can write it down too.
Okay.
A lot of poison ivy down by the basketball court right now.
Yes, that is sadly native.
Yeah,
Ton of poison ivy.
that whole
And I-
corner of the park, including along the track,
And I think,
that
aren't
whole approach area is all
aren't the
poison ivy.
lilies, water lilies also native?
Some are and some aren't.
Okay.
When they're getting aggressive like that and creating a monoculture, it either means that they're the non-native variety, or maybe they're working in concert with the fanwort to, in a bad
Oh,
way,
okay.
you know,
Yeah, usually when some,
one species that can live with the fanwort or something like that.
gotcha. Thank you.
Mhm.
By the way, Marsha was being held artificially high water level, and that issue has been dealt with. You'll notice that the pond is down probably 1.5 feet, 2 feet from where it's been.
And,
Oh.
and
Beavers.
Huh?
Chris, part of it was beavers.
Right.
they
Yeah,
took out the
That was our
beavers?
conversation.
Excuse me?
They took out the beavers?
I don't know what they did. But there was a beaver issue down there, and it was something that a company was down there. I'm surprised you didn't see him on a company was down there kayaking, Chris.
Oh, yeah, they had kayaks out. I didn't see them on the water. I saw them coming out of the water. One evening, and then the following morning again, the same company. I just saw them over on Northfield, headed towards Settlers Crossing too. Some
So
of the water over there.
I'm not sure what they did with the beavers on. I don't know if they removed them. I don't know. I didn't really ask much detail on that.
I don't think you're allowed, I don't think you can relocate wildlife.
Yes. So if they had to remove them, then they're probably no longer with us.
So, do you know, what triggered that request?
I think
It was permitted by the town,
Through,
Board of Health and DPW.
It was causing water issues.
I'll be looking Board of Health minutes.
Yes.
No,
All
that's an administrative.
Yeah, that could be because they
Action.
would have had to have gotten a special permit because it was outside of normal beaver trapping season. So that would have had to have gone through a special permitting request, and that would have been what, Andrea over at Board of Health's office, Dave?
Yes.
So she may have more information on it. And I'm sure Rob does too, because I'm sure it was orchestrated through Rob.
Yep.
They didn't ask too much about it. So, all right. So next up is also Anna. This is an open space discussion on 225 Pleasant Street and 671 West Street. Anybody that didn't see it, I don't know, remember who I may have
watched it.
gotten to send it to you, Susanna, but the last open space meeting is up on YouTube, and Dave Prokofiew gave a presentation that Anna's about to discuss.
Well, so well, let me, before I go through the whole thing, who saw that presentation that David gave? You did? You did?
I watched it last night.
Okay.
I saw most of it.
Okay. So maybe I don't need to go through everything.
Yeah.
We can give the
have
cliff.
it here too. I can watch it.
Okay.
On my
All
own
right.
time.
That makes the discussion quicker. So basically there are two
Excuse
lots
me.
that the open space committee is looking to make the recommendation to either to be used by the town.
So it's currently general municipal, it's properties that are listed as general municipal, which fall under the Board of Selectmen, and they're looking to move some of these, make recommendations to move some of these properties into other user groups such as parks, conservation, cemetery.
Right. Um, so, so the question in front of us is, do we as a commission have any interest on having some of that land designated to parks? That's really all that.
And they're talking about the Pleasant Street lot, right?
They're talking about the Pleasant Street lot.
In terms of Parks and Rec.
Right.
Pleasant Street is primarily more conservation-y type.
Yeah, looks
Land.
wet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wet, and also the Pleasant Street also currently is being used partially for agriculture use. So the fields are already cleared, so it would just be easier for us if we have some kind of use. So that's what the question is for us. And any questions, comments?
So personally, if you were asking only me this question on behalf of Parks, I would say that the West Street property is not something that I think would be a good fit for Parks. I do think the Pleasant Street property would be a good fit. It's a 40-acre piece of property, I think, if I remember
That's
correctly.
what it says. Yeah.
Yeah, I think both properties are about 40
40.
acres.
So it's about 40 acres of property. Currently, I don't know what percentage of it it's actually being hayed. So it's not completely flat, but it is open. That said, I would be interested, if that needed to be moved into somebody's hands to come to Parks. I would hope that the Open Space Committee is also having discussions with AgCom to see if that's something where it's already in the hands of somebody who's using it for agricultural use. I don't know, that's just my sort of side note on that. Like, why are we it's already being used for something, why take it under Parks if it's being used, and maybe it can continue to be used for that?
Well, one thing when I was seeing the presentation and looking at a map, we don't have, a lot of, we have some presence in the Wayland Lake region, and this would give us an opportunity to have, big open space that we can develop other parks, and fields was one that I was thinking, if we are able to have, we talk about needing more rectangular fields. If we are able to then have rectangular fields there, and some of the programs that are happening after school will then be located in the most densely populated area of the town. So I see an advantage for the town for the residents of the town. And that's what was in my mind when I saw it. And I think it would be walkable to the entire area. And I think that's huge because we don't have a lot of sidewalks. We don't have public transportation in town. And, it's kids, they, when they're done in school, if they need to rely on, if both parents are working, it's a lot of arrangement to get the kids to a game. But if we're talking about middle school kids, they might be able to walk to the field if we have a larger presence in that area.
I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
In an ideal world, we would be able to work with, and I do think it's possible to be able to work with other groups. I guess I just look at the haying piece of it, and part of me just knows that we live in an agricultural community, and I don't want to lose that. But I do know that we have the need for rectangular fields.
The piece of ways in the back. So I like the overall plan they had last night. That was really interesting to see. And I think, if it fell under Parks and we could still work in that trail system and so forth that they were kind of discussing and whatnot. As far as field space, I know we already have the Saliva land, and it's a different part of town, certainly less populated in that area of town, but I know there isn't a plan for that yet, really either. But that's also rectangular space, and I think there is a need for it for rectangular space sooner rather than later. So if it was something we were going to pursue, I'd like to see action on both areas. To how do we go about actually starting to develop that land and put this rectangular, kind of open space into action, so that we can have a lacrosse program in town, and soccer doesn't need to rely on school grounds and so forth. So trying to figure that, just make sure there's actually action behind it, I guess, if we're gonna proceed and push towards taking on more land.
Suzanne, were you gonna say something?
It was, yeah. I'm taking a different perspective on it, I guess. I'm eager for parks to have some properties that are not organized sport focused. And I hear Karen's point about how it's already being farmed right now. And I mean, I think it could be a pretty interesting synthesis of a parks property and maintain some of the haying or the farming that's going on there. We could cut paths through a farm field and have it be part of an interesting different part of the path system that is not, it's just recreation. It's just passive recreation, walking, running, flying a kite, walking a dog. It's not a square sports field. It still looks like the farm field. It still is a farm field, but it has a path through it that people can use. Parks,
I would agree
parks
with
aren't,
that.
Parks aren't always organized sports.
Right.
Yeah.
Karen, could I ask you to think back in your memory when you were attending open space meetings as they were talking about some of these properties a little while back? And I missed the meeting the other night. I probably would have asked Brandon this question. There was a discussion in one of their meetings when they started to talk about these general municipal properties. And I thought, Brendan, and I don't know if it was ever sorted out, there are properties that are committed to agricultural use that have agricultural soils in exchange for properties such as the property that the primary school is built on down on Mass Avenue, because that took out a very large chunk of agricultural land. And I thought the Pleasant Street property was one of those pieces, but they weren't entirely sure at the time. So that's one thing that needs to be vetted before any change of use happens to that property.
So they are still looking into that. There's nothing on the deed that has a classification to be of certain use. Paula Bertrand, she was the one investigating some of these properties. And there was talk about some of that was the case, but they haven't been able to find exactly what the information is. And I believe there is another property, the Oliver, I believe, so they are looking into that. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
what did you say?
They mentioned that name in the meeting. I watched the video last night, and I wasn't quite sure where that property was, but you're correct. That may have been
Right.
the other property.
So they're looking into that. I think that other property is the one that they believe to be the one that was bought in association with that, with the replacement. But that piece in particular, Dave, I don't think that changes our per se our discussion, because what we need to decide is, do we have an interest in not defining what kind of use would be rectangular fields, open space, non-organized sport on the plaza, on perhaps the parks having the care and control or of at least some part of the Pleasant Street property.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, okay.
I would say, yeah.
I would say, do you want a formal vote on that, Anna? Are you good with informal?
Oh, we can make it. Let's make it formal, so that way it gets registered as that. So I'll make a motion that we communicate with Open Space Committee that the Parks Commission is interested in having ownership of at least part of the Pleasant Street property that it's now under discussion for changing the care and control from general municipality to perhaps Parks and Commission, or the Parks and Recreation Commission. That was second. That was quick. Good. That was a very long. It's hard to come up with those.
I know. And when you're in person, it's even harder because you have to like chicken scratch write it down. Whereas like, right now, I just let it go and then I grab it on the minute.
Right.
So, all right. Is there any other discussion on that before we vote?
No, I hear what Susanna's saying for sure. Just leaving it as open space. And I guess that was part of my point, was that we already have some space that's maybe designated, that we're talking about, rectangular fields, but there is no action on that. So if we're taking on more land, I just make sure we have an action plan for what we want to do with it, not just own it and then do nothing with it.
I'm actually, I don't disagree with you, Chris, but I'm at the same time, although I've always said I'm not out here to try to make a collection of properties for the park commission. I do think as things get shuffled around, that if we have the opportunity and we already own it, it would make sense to even have some in our back pocket for future use. Who knows what we need down the line? It's one of those things where I think if we had owned the Saliba property, a decade ago, then, we may have already put in our rectangular fields. So, it's not bad to have something in your back pocket.
Yeah, and one comment that they made during the meeting was, to have the land, it doesn't mean you have to develop it right now. It can be when the need arises. And but if you give up that land, and sometimes the giving up could be to make it into conservation land, because once it is made into conservation land, it can never be anything but conservation land. So it's important to keep your options open, even if the use is not immediate.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so let's do a quick vote on that. Chris?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Susanna?
Aye.
And I for myself. Okay, great. Hey, Anna, for our next meeting, because I haven't been watching too closely, could you maybe give some updates if you have any on the and this is for our next meeting, on like especially around some of the properties around Lake Shirley? And
Yeah, I can give you a quick update. And I'm trying, the Open Space Committee, we are very mindful of trying to find the correct, the proper way of approaching this, because we don't want to come across like just land grabbing. So Paula did, she's been looking at, she did a research on all the properties that are under town owned in the form or the other, and the status that the land is in terms of the deed. There's some land it says it came because of a tax lien, but we haven't taken all the steps. So there's a lot of moving parts, if you will, where the status of these properties. And she is in contact with an organization that would love to help us have a public access to Lake Shirley. But the Open Space Committee hasn't made any recommendation as to each property. So, I think our position that I understand is that we also would like to have the town to have access to Lake Shirley. And I'm waiting for the Open Space Committee to say, we would like to pursue this property or that property to then bring it back here, such as I just did with these two.
okay.
And the other thing is, if we have our heart set on a particular property, there's nothing stopping us from doing the same steps the Open Space Committee is doing, right?
So I don't have no, there's nothing stopping us.
Right.
I don't have an issue with it going the way it's going now. I do think that once, at some point, maybe this summer, it would be worthy of, as a Parks Commission as a whole, driving by or meeting at some of those properties so we can actually see them. it would be my hope that if something came under the Parks Commission over on Lake Shirley side, that we would have, there would be unfettered access, direct access to the lake versus Stump Cove. That to me is not accessible. That's like, waist deep in muck and drag your canoe or kayak. So it's hard for me to say this is the property without having looked at every single property, because each of them has their own, little special layout to
Right.
get to the water, so.
On that list of properties, if we do get down there this summer, I would like the commission to get a good look at the piece on Palmerton Road.
Yep.
That's, I think, for the future is an important access directly to the water.
I agree. I like that one. I don't know if any of the other ones have the same access, so. All right, thank you for that, Anna. We will, we'll continue.
Karen, this agenda item was general municipal properties, correct? Or was it specifically?
Yeah,
West
well,
Shore?
discussion of general municipal properties dash the address. I mean,
Okay, I'd just like to make one comment, and Anna was at the meeting, and like I said, I saw the video. The question continually comes up as to who actually has care and custody of the 2 parcels that consist of Fitzgerald Field.
yeah, so.
The discussion the other night was that it's general municipal and that we should be going after it. Well, every time it's looked up, it changes.
Okay, so what I recently saw, and by recent, right before I came off open space in the fall, and I can pull it up again, that it was under the Conservation Commission, but wasn't purchased in a way that required us to have it under conservation and keep it under conservation. I can try to find out where,
It was mentioned on the open space meeting the other night,
oh, really?
what
Okay.
what they think the present status is after some more research.
Okay. I'll work with Anna and we'll contact Brandon and see what he's got. Because
Okay.
if my understanding is correctly, it shouldn't be real difficult to get town support to move it, because it's been under the care of the Parks Commission for decades. So, it would make sense to move it under us, but I will.
And the comment was made during that meeting, if I heard it correctly, and that was that, we really shouldn't have to deal with this because that's something the Parks Department should go directly after.
Yep, and I agree with that statement.
I'd like to see that happen sooner rather than later, so that for long-range planning for down there, it's fully under our care and custody.
Sure. Yep. Let me make my other note then up at the top so I don't forget it. Okay. I will, I'll work with Anna and we'll talk to Brandon and just make sure that we have all our ducks in a row to understand what that, what the deed says and who currently owns it and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay.
And part of the problem that was expressed during that meeting also, and I think we all know this, is that the GIS maps that are up on the assessor's site are totally inaccurate, including deed references and so on and so forth. You have to go to the registrar of deeds.
And that's where we've been. That's actually where I pulled it from way back when. So I'll pull it up again and see if we can figure it out. Right, awesome.
What would be the end goal? Like it's nice to have all your ducks in a row. And the open space committee is looking at all town properties for specific reasons. So what would be the goal of doing this work in terms of for parks?
For Fitzgerald Field.
Yeah.
So currently it's not under the care. It's not under the, we don't
Custody.
own it.
Right.
Right. We don't have custody of it, which means that whoever does have custody of it could at any point decide that they're using it for whatever they want to use it for. So we could go in and spruce up our fields and, spend a ton of money redoing them or whatever, and then that group could come back and say, you had no right to do this, we want it, and it's ours, and we're gonna turn it into a duck pond. They really could, when another group has custody of the piece of property, they have control of the use of it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we have a lot that we could be doing. I don't see it as we prioritize things. I wouldn't think this
That
would be
one's
top of my
easy
priority.
though.
Okay.
Yeah, that one I don't believe is gonna take much work. I think it's gonna literally be a brief discussion with the commission, an article that gets drafted to go into the warrant and a vote at town meeting.
Okay. Sounds
So I
good.
don't think it's gonna be that much legwork.
Okay.
All right. The next one is actually a carryover from last month, and it's the dog policy at the parks. And if you remember, there was some question on whether or not, since the town doesn't have a leash law, we have a restraint law, but not a leash law, could we require leashes, dogs on leashes at the parks, not on the fields, but on the perimeter, and whether or not we were able to do that and if there was a liability concern. So I went to town manager, who then went to Adam Costa, the attorney for the town, and Adam's response was, I do not have any immediate liability concerns associated with the park commissioners allowing leashed dogs on its property or properties. Off-leashed dogs are a different story, and many off-leash parks require the signing of a liability waiver and relief before their use. Massachusetts imposes strict liability on dog owners for injuries that their dogs cause, and he gave me the Mass General Law. As you say, there is no guarantee that the town won't be sued, of course, so it's wise that you've contacted our town insurer. So Heather also did that, and they had no issue with leashed dogs being allowed on parks property. Questions, concerns, comments?
Based on that, I'd like us to formulate a policy that excludes all maintained fields, but opens all other park areas to leash dogs.
Okay, let's create something. That's some good wording.
Yeah.
So what about, it was much easier when we just didn't allow dogs. It was an easy
Yeah.
pet.
No, you can't do this, but you do it anyway.
I know.
You know?
So we could make a policy that the park commission, leashed dogs are allowed on properties under the care and control of the park commission, with the exception of maintained fields.
Well, all fields are maintained, right?
Well, so
I think he's talking about playing fields.
Right.
Right.
You're trying to identify, and we need to make sure that there isn't an exception that playing field doesn't cover. That was my only concern with what I said a few minutes ago, that I wanted to allow them everywhere else, but we needed to make sure that we identified properly the area that they're not allowed in. Maintain athletic fields covers just about everything, but I'm not sure it covers 100%. Maintain grass areas, that's kind of
I think that's too broad.
too broad, doesn't? Yeah, I agree.
Because that would mean any
I
kind
think you
of.
have with the athletic fields. If you say athletic fields, I think we have it pretty well covered.
Yeah,
Designated athletic fields.
I think.
but here, okay, here's my question. The track around the perimeter of the 90-foot diamond, is that part of the field or is that peripheral? Because
No
I want them to be able to walk dogs on that track when they're at games. And I'd actually rather move the fence to the other side of the track if we're going to maintain the 90-foot diamond.
Grassed athletic fields. We want to say grassed athletic fields.
looking online to see if anybody's got anything. I'm not coming up with much.
I'm thinking that the dogs on that track are going to be too chaotic with a ball field right there, and it's just
Well,
right.
they wouldn't be able to be on there while the game's going on because,
Right.
you know, the team's consider it part of the field, but
Yeah.
I
But
want residents to be able to walk the track with their dogs.
So what about this? What if we hold it again? And now that we know all this information,
Mhm.
so that let's be honest, nothing's gonna change. People are still bringing their dogs to the fields. We're gonna have a policy to have, to be able to answer to people, but people are still, between now and when we create this policy that will allow them to do what they're doing, they're gonna continue to do it. So what if we held it and we did a little bit of research to see if we could find another town's policy to see if how they're writing it so that we cover all the areas that we want to cover? I mean, I'm good if somebody wants the motion tonight. I just don't know if you want to word it.
Yeah, I don't think we can pull final wording together this evening. And that was kind of my point when I made my general comment earlier as to what I hope to accomplish, but I don't think you do that in a 15-minute discussion. I think we try to pull a draft together and then pick it apart.
All right, so let's hold that. I don't mind doing it, but if somebody else wants to take a stab at trying to find something that, Dave, do you want to do that since it's not going to require you to leave your house, your bed?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do my best to try to get some out of town, surrounding town research and try to throw a draft together of some sort.
Okay, perfect. All right, just a couple of more things. We have Marsha Park planning and survey discussion. So on the planning part, before Chris takes over on the survey, my thought was that now that I know who our vice chair is, trying to grab a time with Heather Lemieux and or Rob Oliva and sit down and get a better understanding of how this process is going to work. If they're going to find the person for us, if we wait till Kayla has the time to do it this summer, but I'd like to hit the ground running on that. And I think once they can offer some guidance, we'll have a better understanding of which direction we need to move in it for the overall planning.
Yep.
Makes sense?
Sure.
All right, Chris, what do you got for survey results?
So everyone should have access, I believe, to see the survey results off the link that I initially sent. We had 425 responses from the survey. 97.5% were from people in town. Fairly spread out as far as age demographics. The biggest were 40 to 50 years old and 26 to 40 years old, followed by 50 to 65. Little over half say they currently don't use Marshall Park, 54%, 54.5%. Those that do use the park, I mean, as we can assume, it was the fairly typical responses right now. A lot of baseball, a lot of softball, t-ball, walking, yeah, that sort of generally the use that's highlighted there in those avenues. A couple people said snowshoeing, general sports. Someone said biking. So a fair bit. Someone said trails, so they must be just kind of walking in the woods and kind of around. That was pretty well the gist of the current use that's there. As far as the responses that we put out there, overwhelmingly, nature trails was very popular. When compared to saying, that would be great and not really important at all. Nature trails was very ranked very high. Pavilion picnic area was also pretty high. That was a 1 and a 2. The 2 higher end of the spectrum there were kind of where those fell. Revitalization of the track was similar. New playground was one that was also pretty popular. We had several comments actually that talked about putting in a playground that would be more I guess ADA compliant and responsible to different needs. When we, if we were to look at putting a new playground in with something that would be different, that would address certain needs and so forth, and bring that to light. So there were several comments about that. Public restrooms, obviously very popular. People would love to see restrooms there again. The skate park was fairly split. Access to the pond was fairly split, as was the revitalization of the fitness circuit. And park maintenance building folks were kind of in the middle on that. They felt that it could be useful, it seemed, but it wasn't an overwhelming need to have or not have kind of deal. There were 124 other responses or different ideas that were not included in our piece. Several said dog park, but I think potentially we're addressing that issue. I haven't been over to see it. Someone mentioned a fitness center that's similar to what's at Doyle Field in Leominster. I haven't seen that, so I'm not sure what that is. Ice skating rink was a popular response that we saw here.
That was a popular response in the open space survey of a few years ago too.
And it's definitely, there's definitely a lot of ice skating deals here. Shh, the dog is barking at me, sorry. Vending machine, snack bar, outdoor lights for the basketball courts, the track, someone mentioned the track again. I think some other individual ideas that are in here, like tetherball, there's a lot of one-off responses in here as well. Horseshoes or shuffleboard. Like the bigger pieces that we saw in those responses that we didn't include up above were dog park, ice skating rink, concession, snack bar kind of deal. Open space, which we kind of covered. And there was one mention of a disc golf course there.
That was not me, by the way, just to be clear.
It
I think that should be up at the Saliva property.
and then I think you'd want it with the trees and so forth. I would think, yeah.
Bigger property.
Splash pond, splash pad area, batting cage. Like Nara Park in Acton, they have concerts there. I haven't seen Nara Park either. Picnic areas and so forth was another decent response that we had. Great spot for town bonfire. Folks would like to see that back. Concerned about visibility. Kind of cleaning up, widening the front, make it more visible from the road. Be something that was something that they would folks would like to see. A lot of wasted, there's a lot of wasted land. Doesn't get cleaned out. It's overgrown. Definitely needs an update. Overall, this is a well-received. There were not any negative responses to this process. Everything was very, very positive. A lot of comments about being glad that they're seeing this done. So I think we're on the right track overall. I think to be mindful of some of these other responses that we're having. Some of these things that we're addressing. So we've talked about an ice rink and so forth, and to get something like that going and so forth. So I think we're on the right track. But I'd encourage everybody to go through. You should have a link to the survey to be able to see the responses. we just got a response while we're in the meeting. It just went up to 426. So I don't know what that was, but it just increased. But that's the overall kind of what the survey has looked like. And it is still open. You know, people can still provide comment. I haven't closed it. I figure I'd just leave it open. It doesn't hurt to leave it open if someone wants to respond to it later. You know, but I think we're on the, you know, overall what we've identified seems to be on the right track of what folks would like to see.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, there's a couple other good ideas in there that have a common theme, but I think we might be able to address different ways
Was
as
there
well.
anything that came out at the bottom of the list where people were overwhelmingly like, not a good idea?
No, everything was very was pretty well positive. You know, it all you know, there were in terms of the, do you have any other thoughts, comments, or questions regarding Marshall Park? There were 121 responses. You know, things like we'd love to see the park used year round for organized gatherings for families, you know, kids, seniors, you know, several comments about the bonfire. You know, someone said they're already building a large skate park, so there's another point, you know, another here is pointless, but I don't think they understand that it would, it hasn't really been communicated that potentially it could move to this location.
I wonder if they're thinking of the skate park in Lunenburg though versus the.
That's what I mean. Like if they're already thinking that, oh, there's already a spot over by the Kids Kingdom that's going to be a skate park, so why would we put another one in? Kind of deal. So I think it's just kind of where it hasn't necessarily gotten around that potentially it could move. Parking off of, you know, get the parking off of Chestnut. We've just talked about that a little bit earlier, actually. Access to the pond. You know, there was some concern being careful about having access to the pond. You know, sometimes kids are unmonitored and so forth, so they want to be mindful of that kind of deal. Parking for baseball is terrible. There's several comments about the parking. But I think in all, you know, the pieces that, improving overall inclusivity and accessibility for the entire site is something that's mentioned here.
So
Better
that-
kept up, better maintained. You know, a lot of potential. Everyone sees the potential here,
Yeah.
which is great.
A resident over, this is going to the Whalum side, but I know she had sent me some emails on the Marshall side. She is one of the ones that would really like to see some more ADA friendly access to places. I think, you know, like I said, sometimes I think we hit the minimum because it falls under ADA compliance, so we think we're good. But she had some great points, and she sent a ton of links, and I've slowly started going through those. And I'd be curious to see once Kayla's back, and even talk, we think we have like an ADA group through the town now. I have to verify that. I know there was one that was started. I don't know if they're active. But I wonder if there's grants and things that are available. So as we're looking at Marshall and we're looking at some of these new things where we can tap into some of these grants, if we make it ADA compliant for even more people to be able to access. But that may be a way to cut some financial burden from the town, is to be able to find some of those grants through an ADA.
Sure. Yep.
So
I think somewhere in here there was a link to some of that kind of that type of equipment and so forth.
yeah.
I'll try and find. They talk about, someone mentioned a sensory area in the playground. Things like that. Some different things that,
And the things that you don't always think about.
right. Exactly. Yeah.
As
Exactly.
somebody myself who, who's very familiar with ADA type stuff because I access it myself on a fairly regular basis. I always think to myself, oh, this is good because I can access it. But then somebody will come and, throw something else at you like, oh, my daughter, she's very short stature and she has difficulty on that surface, even though it's ADA compliant, because she doesn't have the core strength to, be able to get through it on her own. Or the only thing she can access at the Wallace Park Playground is the toddler area because everything else is too big for her. And we did put in what I believe was an ADA compliant swing over there, but it's not height wise, it's not appropriate for her. So I think involving community and discussion as we move forward at Marshall, especially around making sure things are ADA compliant, will be key, because they're not things that we always think about.
Somebody included the link. I just found the link. There was it's a link to the 30 most impressive, accessible, and inclusive playgrounds like here in the U.S. So kind of an interesting sort of some interesting information to look at for sure.
Thank you. And how did Chris? Are you able to send us that link, or I don't know how to access those results to be able to find the link?
Yeah, I can send that again.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh,
All right. Does anybody else have anything else on Marshall Park survey discussion planning?
Karen, for a future agenda item, whether it be next month or into July, I'd like to update the commission on some of the discussions I've had with the Board of Health regarding replacing the bathrooms in their present location versus possibly bringing in a sewer line from 2A.
Okay.
They're in the process of going through the review of the original location, and we'll have some information, I think probably by June, that I can present as to what our options there. And there is also a funding source that we are tentatively in agreement that can be used towards that.
Okay. Yeah, just remind me when you're ready to
Okay.
put it on there.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So maintenance policy.
Well, I had a quick comment earlier in this discussion. You mentioned, you asked if we should wait for Kayla, or if perhaps you and Chris could talk with the town manager to see if we can get the ball rolling in one way or the other. And I think we, if you know, you mentioned to be very busy, and I don't like suggesting other people to do things, but if it's something that, you know, it can get started before Kayla returns, I think that would be a good thing. But I don't know if that's something that you and Chris are willing to take.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I sort of assumed that it would be Chris and I getting this started anyway. I think that I don't want to wait for Kayla. I think her hours are going to be extremely limited this summer, even when she's back. And I think that line item probably is falling back to the DPW side. So Rob should be able to guide on that. I guess I'm just not sure how it works. So, you know, where does this consultant come from? They're not just going to magically show up one day and say, I'm here. How do we find that person? Is that up to us to find that person? Is he going to find that person? Is it something that Kayla's going to find as soon as she gets back? But I know that that money becomes available on July 1, and I'd like to be really moving towards what we're doing and how to secure that consultant by July 2. So I don't want to wait for Kayla.
Okay.
We're gonna have to put it out to bid.
Yeah, and I don't.
Or whoever, in your discussions with the town manager, whoever's responsible for putting an RFQ, RFP, whatever together, that process needs to start now to allow us to review proposals that come in and make a recommendation back to whoever's going to make the final decision, so we can be on board and ready to run with it in July.
Yep. So we'll work on that, and hopefully we'll have that information for the next meeting. And then at that point, I meant to have a discussion with Anthony Caiozzo in the last few weeks, and I keep saying to him, I haven't forgotten about you. Well, legitimately, the past 2 weeks, I've totally forgotten about them. Susanna, that's fine. Have a great night. So, you know, it's one of those things where I lost track. So I do want to circle back with Anthony. I think we need to get some things finalized with them and give them a timeline of what we're thinking these things look like. And I think now that we know that this capital item has been approved and that money is coming our way, that getting them involved from the very beginning, should this be the place that they decide they want to build their park, will be key. I know that they recently got some funding updates, it sounded like, and I think that, you know, it came in much higher than they thought. So I don't know what their timeline of events is either. But we'll
So they,
bring them back in.
I don't understand. They got a funding update as how much money they need
So,
or how much
yeah.
money they will receive.
So
Okay.
I'm sort of like the third person here. It came through. My husband had a conversation with him last week and was talking about it. And there was some conversation made about they got a cost estimate, like a better cost estimate or something, and it just seemed much higher than they had expected. So we need to close some loops with them and get an idea of a better timeline and put our timeline out there if they do in fact want to come in our direction, so that we know we're all on the same page and not running parallel to each other. So, all right, so.
Everyone should have, if you want to check your email, just make sure I did it right, but everyone should have access to the survey. You might have gotten 2 emails, Karen. I think I sent it the wrong way first.
Oh, really? So let me see, I did get it. Let me see what happens when I click on it. So when I get it, it just asks me to fill out the form.
Is it good? Did you get a second email from me after the first one?
Hold on a second. Yep, okay. I see it. No, this is asking me to fill it out again too.
So I added everybody as a collaborator. So I thought that would.
It's a lot. Oh, no, okay, I see it under responses. So that's the questions.
Should see 426 at the top, I think.
Yep, I got it. I got
Yep.
it.
So then you should be able to see, yeah, you can read all the.
I
Great.
didn't get the email, Chris. I don't know if you sent it to the parks generally or.
I did your A Lockwood email.
Nope, you didn't include her on that one, Chris.
No, what did I do? Okay.
It's all right. Don't take it personally, Anna. Want me to forward it to her?
Well, he would
I will
need to,
send it now. Let me.
because you would need to add me as a collaborator to,
Right.
to see the results.
True.
Down A Lockwood, Lunenburg online. Done. All right, we'll see if that works.
Okay, hitting refresh.
So does anybody have any public or board comments? I actually have a board comment. As you're all aware, our fiscal year restarts on July 1. And now that I think that everybody's got their feet wet, I'd like them to put some thought into what they would like to see for financials from the park side presented to us, whether it be on a monthly, quarterly, or yearly basis. Right now, I don't feel like we get enough of those updates and information. I think we need to be better kept in the loop on where even the money that's budgeted for care and maintenance of our field, where it's going. So I would like to put an agenda item either next month or July, depending on what the agendas look like. I'd like to try to be as kind as we can this summer, because I don't expect to be home a lot. I would like to be able to, enjoy some vacation too. So shorter maybe meetings for June and July. So one of those meetings, put this topic back on there so we can decide what we want information, and then I can take that and go back to Kayla and figure out who needs to give us that information and make sure that it gets presented to us in a timely fashion.
I think that's a good agenda item for the future.
Yeah, that's my only board comment.
I had an email
Yeah.
from someone that he sent, someone from Lunenburg Soccer that sent an email to Kayla and got the out of office reply. So he was curious how to maybe go about setting up any additional maybe summer soccer youth programs in town, maybe similar to what I had done last fall.
Okay. You want to
What
run
would be
it?
the steps to do that?
You know when they want to run it this summer?
I don't have any information. He just was looking to kind of reach out and see. I think his, I can tell you exactly what he So basically he had reached out. So, what are there any programs we could run through parks over the summer for soccer? I see they're doing something for younger kids, but I'd like to keep my girls going if possible. Figure there might be interest if we do it locally instead of having to travel.
Okay, so this would be for similar to what you did last fall, Chris?
I think so. Yeah. So I know his girls, and they're roughly in that same age realm, you know.
So my suggestion would be, I don't want to hound Kayla right now. Let me
Right.
see. I don't know if Sam, if that's something that Sam would be comfortable getting set up on her side, but I will make a note of it. Did he just recently send it? He must have sent it to Kayla directly then.
He
'cause I-
did, and then he forwarded it to me afterwards when he got the out of office reply. So it was only done yesterday, last
Okay.
night, 6:30 last
Okay.
night.
All right, so I can follow up with Kayla, and I do think it's something that can absolutely be done.
I just don't know the steps, and I'm happy to be
Yeah,
involved,
so let
with
me,
it or
yeah,
whatnot.
let me get the, let me see if I can get an okay from Kayla at some point next week. And then ask her what she wants the process to be, and then once, and maybe she'll have a better idea at that point when she'll be able to set it up. And to get that ball rolling. It's, where it's youth and we're not blindly necessarily going out blindly to try to bring in customers. I think he probably has a lot of contacts already that we don't.
Yeah,
need
I would think it'd be pretty similar to what was
Yeah.
done already, and it just requires to like the parents involved needed to be queried by the town and
Okay.
sign the town waiver and so forth, and then
Okay.
it was
I'll
$20 a kid
I'll
or
help
whatever it
I'll
was.
help
So
figure it out.
yeah, I get I know the process, and I'm sure obviously he's willing to be involved and so forth. And we just set it up with different age groups. So when I did it last fall, we only had 2 age groups going on.
Okay.
One was co-ed, one was just girls.
Okay,
But if there was interest to make it a broader thing and field space was available, then there may be some interest.
okay, let me hit up Kayla. I'll probably just have her reach out to you once.
Sure. Yeah.
For the heads up, because I don't know if she has her work cell on. I would hope that she doesn't have her work cell on, but I can grab her on her personal cell and see what we can figure out rather.
The other email that we got tonight, I don't know if anyone saw that email from Pepperell.
Yes, I did.
I replied back.
You did. Okay.
did.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she already replied back to me. So we're good there. So those general the Parks at Lunenburg online account is usually, I answered it for years because we didn't have anybody else. When Kayla came on, she took it over. And then I didn't want it to get pushed to the wayside because sometimes it's residents that are asking like about
The
beach
beach
passes
or-
or whatever.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I told Kayla I would handle replying to those. And a couple of them, I think just need a response from Kayla when she gets back. And I told them that when she's back, she'll get back to them. So I'm just keeping a running list.
Cool.
So I did. that.
I have a quick comment. I think as regarding the town beach, we left that we are not accepting cash at the door. And with the COVID restrictions being removed, and also in order to increase accessibility to residents don't have a credit card or even internet connection that does exist or proper equipment. I wanted to see if we can revisit that conversation.
So I don't think we need to change did we vote specifically not to accept cash? Because so Anna and I talked a month ago, and she had pointed out that she didn't think we could legally not take cash. And I sort of thought she was crazy, but she's correct. And I did find the Mass General Law on that. So we have to accept cash. Even during COVID, all those companies that were like, you can only pay with card, they legally couldn't do that. So I then sent an email out to town treasurer Mylene, the one who accepts the money. She said that in years past, we had accepted cash, and it went usually to the DPW or it went to the cash box at the beach. And she said the process would be the same as in the past. Town hall will be open to the public from 10 to 2. That may have changed. And the folks at the beach or the DPW can do a schedule of departmental turnover as we did in the past, and that we would get a copy of that deposit. So Kayla then responded that she would be able to take care of that. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, I mean, we shouldn't be creating a policy that is against obviously state law, Mass General Law.
Sure.
So that would, I think, would override us anyway, but I don't know if we made it to say no cash. So I think we're good,
Okay.
but we'll follow up. Remind me.
Oh, if we're accepting cash, we're good.
Well, I think we
Right,
have to accept
yeah.
cash. I don't think-
Right.
But that said, we do need to tell people how they can pay cash. I think it's, if they don't understand that they can and how to do it, doesn't matter if we say we accept it. If they don't know the process, then
Right.
we might as, at that point, it's just same as not accepting cash.
Right. We
Just to be clear, we were not accepting cash at the town beach last year.
Right. Well, last year we didn't, but did we make a vote to decide on no cash this year? Or did
No.
we just, okay.
No, we
So
haven't.
I think we're good for this year. Yeah, last year we shouldn't have done that. And if anybody had questioned it, I think state law would have overridden our policy.
There's only one resident that I'm aware of that wasn't able to use the beach last year because he does not have a credit card. And I was going to make sure one way or another, he got a season pass this year.
Okay. All right, so our next meeting is set for, I believe, the 30th of June. We're doing the last Wednesday of the month.
Yeah, I had in my head the last Thursday, but we shifted to Wednesday, which is fine. I thought of it tonight when I was signing off of my previous meeting.
I think we had gone with Wednesdays, didn't we?
I think we said Wednesday.
Yeah, that's fine. I think originally I had said Thursday, and then there was a compelling reason to move it to Wednesday.
Yeah, so let's leave it for Wednesday, which would be
30th.
the 30th.
of June.
Yeah, so let's leave it at that. So we'll do that. As always, I'll send out my email a week or so before, looking for any agenda items. Anything that I think can be held, if the agenda gets heavy, I'll probably hold it just because I think we're gonna be light. We should be light through June and July. So if anybody has something they want tackled, this is the time to do it because we're gonna have the time, but at the same time, I don't want huge agendas, so we're gonna have to find some.
Anna, you and I could get connected on the maintenance piece still
I know. It's
and get after that deal.
yeah.
If you need help on that, just yell. I mean, I've got to go in and sit down with them anyway. I do find, in the past, what I found the easiest to work with is you already have, Anna, you had created that document, like to literally just go in with that document and say, this is what I'm thinking, and then, red pen it, and then, create the new document and maybe one more sit down before you bring it back to us, and then we'll go through and red pen it and make any change. If there's
Right.
something that doesn't seem right, ask Rob for reasons why it can't be changed this way. And go from there. But I do find sometimes doing the work in the background is more.
Helps. Yeah, I agree.
So that 30th meeting should be in person. I'll verify with town manager shortly. DPW is where we normally hold our meetings. I'm also going to ask if that's if there's another location we can use, just because it would be open to residents no matter where we go. It'll always be open to residents. My concern there would be it's a small room, and if for some reason we had a decent turnout, I want all residents to be comfortable, and I want them to not have to be right on top of each other, and that room wouldn't be conducive to any distancing. So I'll see if there's a different location we can use. I think the senior center may be open to us, but I'll figure it out.
I have a question. I know you efficiently sent the email to Rob about the light posts.
Yeah.
Is it okay with this group if I take on the lead of following up with him and see if we have a plan? Okay. It kind of stares in my face every day.
Maybe
Literally.
I'll take my new kayak out there and go check them out myself.
Yeah. it's right now it's getting a little difficult. It will be more difficult to kayak because of the lily pads are already coming up.
I'll just
And
float on the lily pads.
yeah, yeah.
Walk on water.
Hopping from one pad to another. Yeah, no, that's fine that you follow up. That's always
Okay.
you follow up. So, all right, does anybody have anything else?
Can I get a reimbursement? My jetpack just went over on its allowance for the month. My
Well,
hotspot.
if you weren't sitting at home doing nothing all month, you wouldn't have this problem.
Oh, I'm back to work.
I know you are. I know you
Yeah,
are.
but
All right.
no, I agree.
All
Anyway,
right. Can I get a
is there-
motion to adjourn at 8:20? Are we good, Dave?
So moved.
Second.
All right, quick roll call on that. Chris?
Aye.
Anna?
Hi.
Dave?
Aye.
And then I, myself, we'll see everybody at the end of next month. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank
Talk
you.
to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.